Speculation is running rampant about 2028's presidential election. Now, those of you who have been following the show for a while know that I have a longstanding policy of not talking about future elections until the immediate next election is done. We got through 2025's elections, so now we would be talking about 2026. But I think I have no choice but to break my own rule about this time around, because we are in an unprecedented situation. We essentially have soft campaigning for 2028 already starting, and some tests of what 2028 might look like happening right now. Now, on the Republican side, much of the discussion is about JD Vance as the sort of obvious heir to Trumpism. And on the Democratic side, we have California Governor Gavin Newsom polling incredibly well, especially after that big win with Proposition 50 last Tuesday, a week ago today, in California. Now, at the same time, on the Republican side, there are those who believe, it doesn't really matter how JD Vance is polling today. It's ultimately going to be a Marco Rubio type that represents the real direction that the Republican Party should go in after Trump. On the Democratic side, similarly, there are many people kind of probing around. I've told you about how both Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania and Governor Wes Moore of Maryland both recently invited me to creator roundtables, which I believe were kind of partially to see what's the creator space doing in preparation of the 2028 campaign. Where might there be room for Shapiro or Wes Moore, although 2028 was not actually discussed by either of them. And then meanwhile, the American right wing is facing this kind of Groyper insurgency that we talked about yesterday, where there's a question of whether the party will go more in the direction of like a Nick Fuentes type, not Nick Fuentes specifically. He'd be too young and he could never win the 2028 Republican primary. But could the soft handling of Fuentes maybe suggest that like a Tucker Carlson might run? And I've spoken to people off the record privately who believe that if Tucker ran, he could win. Now, on the left, there is also a group that says, no, the Newsom, Shapiro, Wes Moore direction is the wrong direction. The Democrats need to go for like an AOC Zohran Mamdani type. Now, Zohran Mamdani, like me, is ineligible to be president because he was born outside the United States. But the idea being skip all of this stuff, go right to AOC. So bottom line, I do not remember any situation like this. And interestingly, in addition to rampant speculation, we also have very interesting polling. Emerson College polling has California Governor Gavin Newsom in a big lead right now, jumping from just 7% a year ago to 24% today, by far the most support of any potential 2028 candidate. Kamala Harris, the former vice president, is in second place in polling with 10%. So it's Newsom 24, Harris 10, Harris down from 37 a year ago to 10 today. You've then got former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg at 9, AOC at 3, 19% want someone else, and 35% are undecided. The difference between wanting someone else and being undecided when we are 3 years out is sort of a question. So it's like 54% aren't sure. These are stunning numbers for Gavin Newsom so far out. But you also have to consider that historically, when you look at polling 3 years out, typically the leader 3 years out does not actually end up being the nominee. So important to consider. Now we look at the Republican side, same thing, Emerson polling. The polling is indicative of some mental illness. I'll explain in a second. JD Vance is in the lead with 54% support. And you know who's in second place? Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who is currently president and cannot run again, is the second place contender in Republican primary polling for 2028 with 7%. Marco Rubio is polling 6 and DeSanctimonious polling 2. Think about that. The guy who is ineligible to run again is basically polling the same as Marco Rubio. That really tells you something, and it is not something good. And then maybe the most interesting detail is how young men are polling. Okay, young men are becoming a central demographic as they shifted to Trump in 2024, young men part of a coalition that is struggling in society today. We have a League of Women's Voters, League of American Workers tip poll. And among young men, look at this, Gavin Newsom leading JD Vance, 38 to 33. If there is any polling crosstab that tells us something important, it is that. In 2024, Donald Trump got 53% of the young male vote. That was up from 45% in 2020. Trump made historic inroads with young men. And today, Gavin Newsom is polling 38 to 33 ahead of JD Vance, many still undecided there. So my takeaway, we are likely heading to a primary like nothing we have ever seen, especially on the Democratic side. And my view is let everyone in who wants to do it. If you're eligible and you want to dip your toes into the pool, come on in and let voters decide. I believe that the strongest position for the Democratic Party in 2028 will rise from a robust, wide primary. If Newsom and Shapiro and Wes Moore want to get in, by the way, Wes Moore has said he's not running in 2028. Things can change. I don't believe that that is so hard and fast, because if you're a Wes Moore, you can easily say in 2027, hey, you know what? I did not intend to run when I made that announcement in 2025. Circumstances have changed. I believe I'm well suited. So I believe that Wes Moore saying he's not going to run is sort of like, okay, we'll see. But on the one hand, if Newsom and Shapiro and Wes Moore want to get in, let them all get in. I believe that they are competing for a similar slice of the electorate. Let them all get in. On the other hand, if AOC wants to run, Pete Buttigieg, whoever, get everybody in. Let voters decide. That is how we are going to surface, I believe, the best choice. But we are quickly ramping up to a Democratic primary, never mind the Republican one, which could be completely whacked out. I believe, are heading to a Democratic primary like none we have ever seen before. Thanks for watching. Check out this other video. And if you like our content, make sure to subscribe so YouTube puts our videos in your feed, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple.